Welcome to week 8 of term 2 for our newsletter. Just to let people know, we'll be continuing with this style of newsletter through to the end of the term, and then I'll be reverting back to a written newsletter for most of that time. Not all the time, but most of the time. Look, this week we celebrated a couple of important events. The first was Refugee Week. Refugee Week's a fairly important one for us here at St Lawrence's, very important for us, and very important for many of our communities. Indeed, many of us are descended from refugees, and there's some who've been refugees recently and some whose ancestors were refugees. We also remember the first Australians who have been here for thousands and thousands of years. When I think of Refugee Week, I think of students that I've taught who are sons of refugees and in some cases daughters of refugees, or who were refugees themselves. And one boy I think of in particular is Michael. Now, Michael didn't attend this college, but he attended a very similar Christian Brothers Edmund Rice College. Michael was a refugee from Sierra Leone in Africa. And I remember Michael well coming to the school in Year 9. Michael had very poor English. He struggled with his literacy. So therefore he struggled to access the curriculum and to understand the work. Michael had a real sense of gratitude for what the school was providing. He was very grateful for the sacrifice that his family made to get him out of Africa and to come to Australia, and he was only ever grateful for everything that had been provided for him. He had a real sense of perseverance, a fellow people, and he had a sense of resilience. At the end of Year 12, Michael graduated with an OP6, which was a significant effort for him. He was able to read and write well at that time. He graduated to university with a scholarship and some support of some local people. Michael did paramedicine. His sole aim was to eventually become a doctor and return to Africa to support the people that he'd left behind. So Michael developed a real sense of service in what he did. And for me, that's very Catholic, and that's very Laurie's. So when I speak to the boys about a sense of perspective, sometimes we get upset, sometimes we get grumpy, but I remember Michael, his resilience, his gratitude, and his real love of learning. And I always get a message when I'm feeling sorry for myself when I think of Michael. The second significant day that we've celebrated this week was School Officer Day, which was celebrated here on Wednesday, with staff being provided with morning tea, with social distancing, of course. And when I think of school officers, I remember the story, a second story, about a man working in the Louvre in France. And the story goes something like this. Every day there was a man working in France. He was cleaning floors, he was pinning things up, he was painting walls, he was doing general maintenance work at the Louvre. And a visitor came there every day for 2 weeks, and he was greeted by this man every day he arrived. On the final day before he left his expedition to the Louvre, he asked the man what he did at the Louvre. And his response was something like this. I expose people to the beauty and creativity of French and European art. I expose people to that which feeds their soul and their heart. And I do this by mopping floors. So for me, the message there is, even though a lot of people may not have found that particular task an important task, he looked at the mission of where he worked. And he contributed to the mission by his maintenance and cleaning. So for all our school officers, whether they be involved in HR, supporting students, comms, communication, grounds work, maintenance, etc., they contribute to our mission, and we thank them all for all they do, and they do it with a sense of service and gratitude. Again, that is our Catholic tradition. This week it was primary liturgy, and I thank Mr Wigan and again of course Miss O'Neill and Mr Caulfield for the primary liturgy. It went very well, and I thank the young boys that read at that. They were quite nervous, some of them. They did an excellent job. You've also got information about the reboot of co-curricular music and sport. We're very excited about that, and our boys are very excited to be returning to training. So for us, we will follow all government guidelines, and AIC are meeting as I speak on Friday to look at how they can implement the program for all of our boys. Interesting data from our students about the sports that they'd like to do and the music programs they'd like to be involved in. There is huge uptake in many different areas. I'd also wish the Year 10s well in their very short exam block. Very important time for the Year 10s, particularly as towards the end of the year they move into their senior studies for Year 11 and they prepare in term for that. And a final thing from me is to wish everyone well as we move towards the end of term, and to remind families that Thursday the 25th of June is our last day here. Remember that we have extended the school term due to our COVID restrictions an extra 4 days. The 5th day will be a staff day here where they'll be looking at their reporting, etc. I wish you well as we move to the end of term. Thank you very much.